Okay, why don't we go ahead and call tonight's work session to order? The first session with Scappoose Community and Senior Center.
Yes, Mayor and Council, we have invited members of the Scappoose Senior Center Board to come meet with you this evening. This is a continuation of the goal that you all wanted to continue meeting with other governing bodies from the area. So we do have several members with us this evening that we can invite up to the mic so they can speak with you all. They're going to go ahead and just give you a status update on what they've been doing. And then you had some time to ask questions.
Gotta talk in that. Needless to say, we have a lot of problems with our own microphones at the center, so. Anyway, good evening and thank you for the invitation. Be here this evening to hopefully give you a little update on where we are and how we're moving forward. We have quite a few new members coming in and old members that haven't been there are coming back. So we feel we've got a kind of a regeneration of the center going on. Funds are coming in slowly, but considering where we started and the bills that we've paid and where we want to go, hopefully we're moving forward in the right direction. I, for one, am pretty green at all of this and get very nervous, okay? I'll admit it right now. I don't quite know where to start. Other than that, I've given you all copies of our most recent newsletter, which I tried to recap pretty much what's happening now and what's been happening to get us this far. Questions? I don't know how much further to go at this point. If you have read the newsletter, you know where we have activities going on and just about ready to get our bus on the road again, hopefully. Repairs are coming along. We've replaced the catalytic, converter. And it's taken new batteries, new tires. It still needs one more go through, I believe, before we get a full go ahead to take a trip. Any of the other board members want to say anything at this point?
It's just, oh, it's working.
Could you, real quick, introduce us with your name?
Introduce us. Okay, my name is Kay Stuck-Warings. I'm president of the board at Scappoose Community and Senior Center. On my right is Clara Pale, who is vice president of the board.
If they come up and speak, then they can, just for the record.
Okay,
It's good enough.
okay.
Oh, you want me to say something? Well, basically, very new at being on the board, period, more or less being vice president. I've been going to the senior center for quite a while. Really don't know how far back when we had meals and that sort of thing. I'm sort of in charge of bingo, which is a community thing, not only senior center, the seniors. So it has improved very much in the last almost about 9 months, I think, since COVID. And we got back into that. It's better than it used to be. Basically, I've been doing landscaping, so I hope it looks better out there. And I work in the garden and I try to help Kay as much as I can. I volunteer every Wednesday all day and I'm there quite often to do what I can do with the medical supplies and cleaning and working in the kitchen and that sort of thing. As far as I try to get more people to volunteer, we need more receptionists, don't we?
Receptionist, yes.
I've got one gal going, to have to bring. We should try and get more people to drive people in, seniors especially. But that's about what I've been doing since I've been vice president or on the board, and actually a volunteer.
And
Where we're gonna go from there, it depends on when we up and going.
Right.
Fully.
Next project we hope to tackle is the kitchen. We have to completely clean it, rewash everything after 2 years of sitting in the cupboard. And of course, at this point, restock it. And we shouldn't, I'll put it that way, go forward until we are clean. Because at that point, then we'll need a health inspection to make sure that we qualify to reopen the kitchen.
Oh, one more thing. I'm supposedly in charge of emergency preparation, which I really don't know the real basics, but we did get into getting our building into, I would say, more safe, more,
Compliance.
compliance with the safety measures. So that was a good big step too. We had a lot of improvements to do there.
We do still have 2 things that we're waiting on the fire marshal, what is his name? Chief Batista,
Chief, which
to
is,
get back to us. We've pretty much followed through on all his suggestions, but we haven't gotten a final report. And we're still need to get a Knox box for the front door, as well as our letters larger, but I haven't been able to find out what size yet. So, but it has been thoroughly inspected for fire, and all of the fire extinguishers have been refilled. The smoke detectors have been serviced. The total alarm system has also been serviced. So I would say, do you have any questions? Any concerns?
First of all, newsletter looks great. It's really well done and really gives an idea of all that's going on at the senior center right now. And I know you guys are kind of the cornerstone of what's happening there. So kudos to all of you for the good work you're doing, because it's a great sense of the community center really after COVID is really moving in the right direction.
Thank you.
Appreciate everybody's effort into that. One question I have, where are your financial needs? I know you've got, I read your letter, but maybe we could just, highlight them verbally in this meeting. But I know that you have some, and not sure where we can help, if we can help, but we should know about it.
Okay, we do have some funds coming in. One grant came in that thankfully was to use as we please. It wasn't specifically targeted at any one item. As far as the main concerns right now, we have the thrift store roof needs to be repaired. The bread store roof should be replaced, not just repaired. The bread store place is the same situation. And of course, the siding on our center is only half done. And the only bid I have on that right now is $40,000, which is way out of our league. But I'm really getting concerned because of the front of the building where it needs the new siding, and particularly the portico is falling apart and needs reinforcement and some revamping up there.
Can I have a follow-up to that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I had, in your letter, you had mentioned that siding, and you just said it now, siding had started.
Half done. The
Half
back
done.
side and the kitchen end are done.
Okay. And then in your letter, it had also mentioned some that had already been put up might need to be started over again because maybe it's been sitting there a
Okay,
while or,
I'm getting conflicting information on
Okay.
that.
okay.
Some people say, no, it's got to come off, and others say, no, it's just fine. You
Okay.
just need to finish it because it's only half done on that end. If that can stay, that's one thing. It still is one complete side, the length of the building, and half of that one end.
And just for the record, so everybody's clear, can you tell us what caused that project to stop? Or why it's only halfway finished and it's been sitting for a while?
I would say 2 things, funds and COVID.
Okay.
Beyond that, I'm not sure because I'm new back in this process.
Sure.
as of July.
Try to step up forward to the microphone and introduce yourself with your name.
I'm James Jeffrey, board member at the Scappoose Community Senior Center. And when COVID hit, we had some money that we had set aside for siding. It came from some other foundation to buy some tools and materials, and not nearly enough to do the whole center, but part of it. And I was president at the time, and I started the project thinking that maybe if I started working on the building, that people would volunteer to help. Rather than just sit and write newsletters and say we need volunteers, I go do it and kind of lead the way, so to speak. Well, what happened, the executive director had lunch one day with one of the Kessie brothers. Did I say that right, Kessie?
Mhm.
Right, yes.
And I'm not sure which one it was, but which Kessie, yeah, he brought a crew in that did a fine job as a result of his mother's intervention, I think. And he furnished all the labor, and it came out at the end that there was a bill of $5,260 for the siding. So I wrote a check for that. I then wrote a grant through the city and got some matching funds for I guess it would be the north wall and the west wall, not the marquee, because it's rotten, and I wasn't going 20 feet off the ground for anybody. So I wrote the grant, and you guys gave us some money, and I found that there was still no volunteers, and I was doing everything by myself. So I asked Julie to return the check to the city, and she contacted somebody, or I contacted somebody. I don't remember her name, Susan Reeves or something like that. So did I say that
You
right?
nailed it. Yeah, nailed it. Yeah.
And what I expressed to her was that I said, I think we should give these funds back because I'm not going to meet the deadlines that the grant asked for. I said, there's no way I can do it by myself. And she said, as long as you're moving forward, that the city would be for giving. So I told Julie, put the money in the bank and leave it there. And she put it in the bank. And I went out and bought the siding. And I'm the one that's put it on the south wall and started doing on the front. And I did have the help of I don't know, someone that got in trouble with the courts. What do they call those folks?
Oh, yeah, the,
Volunteers.
No,
Yeah, they're
no, I
working on-
don't think it's a volunteer.
Community service.
Community service.
Anyway, he only had about 80 hours, so he came and helped me do something. And right after the election, the fellow that I had come up and loaned me the tools for putting the siding on to keep everything level all the way through, he came up and said, I want my tools back. And I haven't seen him around the center since. So I haven't gone out and purchased tools. I'm beat up from trying to get volunteers from the center that to help out. So I just stopped. The siding that's on it, it's all that hardy plank, and it doesn't need to come off. It just needs to continue forward, whether we contract it or we get some volunteers in to help put the stuff up.
And do you have all of the materials aside from the tools?
So I would just go buy like $300 or $400 worth at a time and just
Got it.
put that up rather than fill the whole center up with boxcar full of siding. I just do piecemeal, and then I put it up, and I think there's a few pieces still in the center right now that I didn't get nailed up on the one side, but it needs volunteers, whether they're from the community, or system or whatever. It just needs volunteers. We're getting old. We can't do everything on a ladder like we used to do. But to date, it's all been done by a 72-year-old guy. So I can't do too much of that anymore. So I need some help.
Thank you.
I can follow up on that if I may. First of all, I'm familiar with some of the things that happened during COVID. People weren't idle. I know that there was a lot of improvements made at the thrift store inside, painting and rearranging. It's quite different now than what it was, and nice improvements. So there was a lot of labor that went into that type of thing. And I know James worked hard personally and did a lot of work there and put some of his own money out for it too. So that's all appreciated. Right now, it seems that the senior center is in a situation where you've got some projects to do and there's no real hope of being able to raise enough money to get those things done. Would I be correct in saying that?
Pretty much.
And it seems to me that if I'm telling when I read your letter, it looks like you're about $70,000 to get done what you need to get done approximately.
Right.
Would that be correct? How much money do you have in the bank at this time?
Right at 75,000 in all the accounts.
Okay,
Roughly 25,000 of that is designated funds that can't be used.
okay,
But the bingo account has been building. I've gotten small contributions, but more or less continuous, $100 here, $50 there. Bingo is doing good. And the membership, we up the fees to $25 for a single and $35 for a couple. And that's brought in what revenue is there. So we do have some revenue, but by the same token, we don't have enough to do all of that and still operate month to month.
Kay, I'm under the understanding that you don't currently have a director at the senior center.
No,
Okay, so who is managing the finances currently?
I am.
Thank you.
Peter? Could you talk a little bit about final rules for ARPA funds? Do any of these projects fall into an area where we could,
Yeah, Alex and I have really been struggling to find something that could qualify, and there are a couple of reasons why there's not an easy fit. The ARPA funds were designated primarily for water and sewer and broadband projects. And none of those,
they're broadband?
yeah, so broadband. There aren't any of those at the senior center. There's also funds for revenue replacement. Unfortunately, because of the audit that the DOJ went through, the charitable division, the only funds that they could actually accurately trace were funds that came from the city. The reason they were able to trace those is because we required receipts. So for instance, the senior center bought microphones and other new equipment with that tranche of money, which wasn't allowed to use. And then we had receipts for those items. So replacing money that was already a federal grant from a program that went away isn't how the replacement is set up. The replacement was set up if we had 3 years of gas tax revenue at around $90,000, and then it went down to 40. Then we could backfill with that. So there's really no obvious project on their list that qualifies for any of the funds.
That said, in the draft budget that will be coming to you all here pretty soon, I was proposing to have in there earmarked just for the senior center $15,000. Then they could also apply for the community enhancement program grant, so essentially 20. And then we actually also have funds to pave the road to the bread store in the street or in the public works budgets. So we have actually identified funds for them, even though we weren't sure that the ARPA funds were necessarily a fit. So we did that instead.
So is there a way, I know that you're raising money for the roof and siding.
Yes.
Is there any way we can leverage our social media presence by putting some of these senior center calls for donations? I mean, sometimes it just takes a bigger voice to call out to a wider range of people.
And we actually have been doing some of that. So
I just think very directly, we need this
Yeah.
much money to finish the siding for the senior center.
Just pick one project.
Yeah. Let's replace the roof to the thrift store or the bread store.
Yeah.
Let's have the school district, oh wait.
Oh,
Oops. I saw him smiling back there.
Well, and I think also to add on that, just adding in the fact that they need volunteers and skilled labored volunteers would be ideal for them. So having that information out there as well will probably help them tremendously.
Mr. Mayor. So Kay, I'm under the understanding that in order to open the senior center back up, there needs to be some cleaning. What was that?
The
Of the
kitchen.
kitchen.
That's specifically the kitchen.
Okay,
The rest of the center, basically, we're open.
okay,
We have, well, I've had a community service person that I've been working, cleaning windows, scrubbing floors, that type of thing. And so we have been open,
just not for meals.
just not for meals, right? And we're starting to get the activities, as you can see in the newsletter, starting to come back. There's some others that are suggested. And until we get people wanting to do them, we're not scheduling them specifically.
Sure. And in addition to cleaning up the kitchen, I see $2,500 for the kitchen stove.
Okay, I don't know what it would cost to clean that stove, but the $2,500 was for the hood. That is paid.
Okay,
All of the unpaid bills, all of the current things that have come up because of what we've done to try and reopen with the fire scheduling and the equipment that had to be updated for that. And the hood, the company that did that pretty much honored their original bid from, I believe it was 2 years ago. So the hood problem is taken care of.
I can't help but think that we do have some people in the back row that is there still a graduation requirement that entails community service or service hours? So Kay, you are labeled as the community and senior center.
Yes.
I don't know, are you actively making a connection with per se like a high school leadership group or seniors that need graduating, service hours that they could,
I have been trying to reach out to different things like that.
okay,
I have not specifically been to the schools. I have had phone calls from them asking me to return the calls, which I do, don't get anyone, and I never get called back.
okay.
I haven't physically gone to the establishment and pushed myself through the door.
No, that's okay.
Don't worry,
I
we
have-
brought them here tonight.
Yeah, they're behind you. It's okay.
That was the whole plan.
I can't help but think that, after school hours or weekends, I know that school age children are still considered minors. So they
Right.
might have to be accompanied by an adult or something like that. But if we can help facilitate that connection, I'd be happy to help
Okay,
just look into it a little bit.
certainly
Okay.
would appreciate it. I'm kind of at my wit's end. I mean,
Can
I'm
see
down
that.
there every day, even Saturdays and Sundays, trying to work things through, trying to get the computers up, to get software, you name it. I'm doing what I can.
And we see that and we appreciate that. So thank you.
Peter, there's no way that they can qualify for replacement income. I know we've talked about this before, but here's I know they don't have the documentation that you would like, but it seems like the need is obvious that they had income.
Yeah, that's just not how it works. Unfortunately, I mean, I know I'm not giving you the answer.
Let
that
me
you
let me
want.
finish. There's COVID, then COVID's gone and we have money available to replacement income. There's no way to be able to do that without having a strict accounting of the money and line items and all that. Couldn't we just do like a whereas, whereas this, whereas this, whereas this, give them this much money?
I mean, one of the frustrations from the Department of Justice was that they couldn't track. I mean, there were bingo funds that seemed to be missing, but there was no accounting of various funds. I mean, there were funds that were in different buckets and there are funds that and a lot of things were done in cash. And the bank accounts just were not kept in a way that other than a forensic audit. And even then, I think there was question at the DOJ whether they could do it. And given that there was an audit that had all of those findings in it, and for including that the funds that they could trace were funds from us that were part of the federal funds, I think trying to replace anything would be really difficult because nobody can accurately say what the income was.
It's obvious they've had a loss of income.
No, it's not obvious that they've had a loss of income because there were no accounting of the income.
Well, when they're closed for a year or whatever it is, and there's no income coming in, there's a loss of income. Might not be able to document it like you'd like to see it done, but there is an obvious loss of income. And it would seem to me that, we could just put that in a paragraph statement and saying that they have not had income for a year and a half or whatever it's been, and see where that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there would be a substantial risk that those funds would get clawed back because, again, we actually have an audit saying that they could not account for them, not just from like an auditor, from our own Department of Justice, saying that they couldn't account for any of these funds.
But they didn't address the fact that they were, when they were closed, they didn't have any income. They didn't address that in that report. They didn't.
Did the report come out last summer?
I think so, yeah.
COVID has made all these timelines kind of fuzzy for me.
Outside the box question.
Yeah.
Are there items that are going to be in the upcoming budget? We don't have a lot of time here. Are items that are going to be in next year's budget proposal that would meet the use of ARPA funds? So we could then take those funds out of that fund and use it to help the senior center on some of these projects.
Well, I mean, that's essentially we've done in a sense because we already have the 15, and then with them, being able to apply for the CEP program, then you're looking at about
Obviously, it can't
20.
be the water department, can't be the sewer department.
Right. Right. And then, like I said, and then we do have the money for paving the road so that they don't have to deal with the potholes anymore. So we did really try to find some funds to support them, even though the ARPA funds didn't seem like they were.
But if they came to us with a proposal to put in a top of the line Wi-Fi system, broadband system within their property, we might be able to fund it.
Well, so we had previously provided them with grant funds to upgrade all of their equipment. So like their microphones, their electronics, all of that.
I said broadband.
Right, from a prior thing.
Well, that was CRF money. I think that was about
Yeah.
25,000.
Mr. Mayor.
There just isn't an obvious way to get them funds. Okay. Out of ARPA. The ARPA funds are the same dollars as, it's
Well,
a dollar equals a dollar.
They're printed the same cents, so it
Right? The money is green, whether it's ARPA or general funds.
caused 10% inflation, but no. Quick tax.
Kay, thank you for all the work that you're doing. I kind of want to focus on the things that we can do and less about the things that we can't do. There's a lot of resourceful people in this room. And I think that we should try to connect the senior center, community and senior center with the right resources. For example, you said that there's computers that need to be updated. There's probably some folks at the high school, I would imagine, that have that level of expertise that could help you. But, we could make a list of all the different things that you folks need help with. And then we can figure out how to connect you with the proper resources to be able to do that. I'm thinking of some ideas in my head as we have this conversation. One of the other things that I would like to try to clarify a little bit is I think you said that your account, all the accounts collectively have about 75,000 in them. Is that correct? And you said that, if I remember correctly, 25,000 is allocated, it can't be touched?
Roughly.
Okay. So not knowing how your expenses throughout the month work and what your income looks like, kind of shooting in the dark here a little bit, but how much money do you actually have, or how much money can you actually use for these projects that you've outlined in your documents that are in front of us?
Very possibly close to half,
Okay.
and still maintained because Bingo is doing well. The thrift store is open and producing quite well. The bread place is even higher than it was before. So the donations are coming in, and we don't have excessive expenses. Yes, we have monthly expenses, the water and the sewer and all the rest of that. And so far, every month has come out ahead. So we're gaining, but it's slow. The other aspect of this is even with these funds, I don't see how we could hire anybody, let alone an executive director, not even a cook. I mean, we're doing the janitor work ourselves. My poor husband is totally worn out today, but we're doing the best we can and have considered, we have a board meeting next week and we'll be considering taking 10,000 of the bingo funds to be put with what we know is roof funds for the thrift store. And we should be pretty close to being able to do it. What I have found is there's about 7,000 that was in the maintenance account specifically designated for the thrift store roof. And so if we put 10,000 with it, I think we have a contractor that will do the work and get it done as soon as possible for that 17,000.
If you consider the repairs that are on the books right now, and you look at the income that you have coming in from things like bingo, is it realistic to say that you would be able to pay for those things over, say, a time period? I'm just, throw out 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever. Is that a realistic thing for you guys? What I'm getting at is if we can try to help facilitate your human resources,
Mhm.
because it sounds like that's really stretching you guys thin there. If we can help you with that, and I'm just trying to drill down a little bit more on the specifics to get a better idea of what your revenue looks like coming in versus your expenses. And if over a reasonable period of time, you would actually be able to afford those things that you guys need to be able to do.
Without having any hiring at this point, I would say yes. If we have to put out several $1,000s a month for an executive director, for instance, no, we couldn't.
So hypothetically, if we were able to bring human resources volunteers to help you out, that would save you money. And with
Yes.
the money that you have coming in from bingo, you would potentially be able to build your accounts up to be able to afford those repairs.
We have built the bingo account up since would be the 1st of September. So that actually the bingo account is at 10,000 or 15,000, a little over 15,000 right now. I have bingo supplies all purchased, so we shouldn't need any more bingo supplies, for instance, for another month.
Okay. I would like to be able to help organize the human resources part of it. And I can work with Pete to try to help. And we'll rally the troops and try to get you guys some help there. And hopefully be able to affect a positive change there.
Appreciate the concern
I
and the help.
I'm sorry, I cut you off and I didn't hear you.
I said, we'll appreciate the concern and the help.
We really appreciate you and everything that your board does too. And I want to be sure that that is very clear. So we'll do what we can. There's just some limitations. on what we
Understood.
can do. I happen to know a couple of local computer guys too that are in the area. I can approach them too and see if they would be willing to help. I'm going to solicit Council President Greison's help to communicate with the school too to see if perhaps there's some folks within the school district that can help you out with your computer needs as
Okay.
well. Thank you.
We're way over time, but to piggyback on Tyler's comment, can you do us a favor, Kay? Can you give us a snapshot of where you are with the roof? So whether it's in an email, who has given you the bid and for how much? And I guess you don't have any, and same thing for the siding. Who it is and how much? Because I'm just listening to some of the numbers and I think we can help you in some areas.
You can send that all to me and I'll get it to council.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do. Superintendent Porter is here from the school district. He's right after you, but I think he has something to say about this topic.
Yeah, listening to this, Kay, if you would either, how about I'll give you the phone number to the district office and you just ask for me. It's 971 200 8000. So 971 200 8000. Ask for Tim Porter, and we'll put you in touch with some people that can hopefully help out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, could I also say, Alex has been a big part of what's going on there right now. She goes through all their meetings and she's been, there's a lot of things getting done because she's been directly involved with what's going on there at the senior center. So
Appreciate it.
I think the council knows, but if you don't, you know now.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Tim, you can back up. What was that number again? 971?
Said to ask for him, so it's not as.
Uh-huh.
No, that is not my direct line.
Let me just pull that.
Going up right now.
Welcome. Alex, you wanna
Sure.
kick this off?
Sure, absolutely. So, appreciate you both for being here. There had been a request by council that we meet with representatives from the school district just to discuss the idea of daycare. I know that's been a topic of discussion when the city's been thinking about how to spend their ARPA dollars. So, we have some representatives here. They've been willing to join us. And I don't know if, do you want to actually start?
Ty Bailey's here from the budget committee. I know that several budget committee members might chime in and listen back to this. They were aware that you would be here, and that will help us collectively make a decision on how to move forward with this topic. But we've been approached through COVID and prior to the lack of childcare within our city. And we've looked for so many ways to try and help and support. And I think that these ARPA funds have allowed us to maybe have that opportunity. We've talked a lot about and had people share with us that in the past there has been housed in a school district building an after school, I don't want to call it a program, but childcare. And unfortunately that went to the wayside prior to COVID. But looking for something that's accessible to school age students, people that are in our school district. So conveniently Warren Elementary students, are on the bus and come through Grant Watts and either they all walk up or head to Peterson and that's where it's housed, or sometimes it's been in Grant Watts and Peterson, just depending on numbers. We've run really into a dead end because we were doing a bunch of research about how we could start something in Scappoose on our own. I mean, I'm calling Pat Cassie going, have you rented the other side next to Starbucks? Can we open a childcare? Like, where are the buildings? But then we're fumbling over how do they get there? There's no busing. So I think we're really just at this crossroads, this point of we need to have something provided to us in a school district building, or we're not able to get anything started. We can use these funds. Peter, our city attorney, has a connection to someone who can just kind of come in, create the contract, work with the personnel that would kind of run the childcare after school program. And then from there, they sort of deal with the ins and outs of who's checked in and who's paid their bill for the month, et cetera. But we would be able to support financially kind of getting that started. And then families would then trickle in and start paying that essential, company or whoever comes in and kind of does that. So that's kind of the backstory. I don't know, Ty, from your end, if there's something else I'm missing.
I think you
Okay.
covered it.
Yeah.
The one thing I would add, just as part of the private element, is this kind of came to a head in our last meeting when we were looking at options in private space that would involve capital investment in private property that would have limited duration, which is really concerning on a number of levels, but we need stuff like this. So if we could find a public approach that gains a lot of advantage over time, we'd much rather go that direction.
And one of the things that we learned is that to bring in a third-party host like a campfire, we need the district on board with that because those service providers provide the service in the school.
No actual campfires will be inside the building.
Right, right. I'm old enough that it was called Campfire Girls when I was growing up, and now it's called Campfire. But that was something we looked at. That they're present in some City of Portland schools, and some of the suburban schools as well. But they would need a district sponsor. The consultant that we talked with, who has run this type of program and also run preschool program, which is far more rigorous as far as how many employees you need per child and everything like that. She said that there needs to be a local person who's a responsible party, but for most of these programs, they make a modest amount. And most of the employees are district employees that are aides or something of that nature that, get paid between $18 and $20 an hour in an after school context. And because that's an extra source of revenue for them and they're already at the facility, sometimes that's attractive for those kind of folks to pick up a secondary source of income. So got a lot of good information, but what we learned at that point is there was no obvious other facility in the city of Scapa. We even talked about senior center, but there was the problem with that would be a transport. So transporting the children from a school facility to a facility outside that wouldn't normally get school district buses was going to be very problematic. And just, I'm sure, as you guys know, even finding people that could serve as bus drivers or things of that nature right now is really, really difficult. So what we ended up learning, I ended up learning far more about childcare than I thought I would, is that we really would need the district kind of as a partner, and that's similar to how St. Helens has those sort of programs after school.
That's the story.
And you're sticking to it. Yeah, I don't see a reason personally why we couldn't, combine forces and try to take care of something like this. I mean, obviously, we'd need to see the particulars of what this is going to involve with us. It sounds like that the vast majority of it is a location. And if we're talking about a location, obviously we have locations. But again, obviously we'd need to see the particulars of it, like who's really in charge. Is there a fee for the usage of the space, or what happens when somebody doesn't pick the kiddo up on time? Is transportation expected from the facility back to the house? There's several questions that would need to be answered that, because if it is on our facilities, we also have some liability along with that. But I do think that it is something that we would be open to pursuing.
I think that definitely we should bring the consultant in soon, talking about.
Yeah, I think that can happen.
I mean, it just seems not someone that uses childcare, but I hear the need from people in the community. I've heard it. I think it almost got echoed during COVID. More people were home, but it was then coming out when things started opening up. It was just a huge issue, and then start up a daycare facility is a lot of money. That's why I think you see them all going corporate. That's a lot of money to do it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, not only personally knowing with small kids that it's almost nearly impossible to find daycare, even locally. If you are looking for something right now, you're looking up in Hillsborough and Beaverton, and then you're talking about transportation as well, personal transportation to get them there back and forth. I think, the community has spoken multiple times about how do we as a community develop, more childcare in our community. The schools are really the ideal situation for us to be able to try and facilitate that. And if we can find that way to make this happen, it'd be awesome.
I do want to be careful and make sure that we're talking about after school care.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a component of the entire picture, though.
Yes.
Yes, we are just right now talking about after school care housed in a district facility. Mr. Mayor, I think what what's heartbreaking is that so many of our citizens that live here unfortunately can't work here because there's no childcare. So they're seeking opportunities elsewhere and commuting their children with them for their childcare facilities. That's a bigger picture. But I do know since COVID, so many families, were working at home and they got in a routine of their kid is there. Now their employer is asking them to go back into the building and something like this isn't set in place and they either have to stop working and quit or forfeit, promotional opportunities because they're staying at home because they have to pick up their kid from after school. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but perhaps it might help us with our scope of work and the questions that we need to be able to answer. If you don't feel comfortable, please don't go into it. But prior, there had been an after school childcare housed in the district. If you feel comfortable, can you explain maybe why that stopped so that we know what things we need to do better this time if we're sort of overseeing or trying to get something in, or things that we need to be able to ask, or what do we need to do that wasn't happening?
That was before my time here, so I
Exactly,
don't
yeah.
have, all I have is anecdote or secondary
Sure.
information. I don't have primary information here. But my understanding was there was some disagreements over the usage of the facilities and like timelines for being out of locations and the district's ability to use some of those facilities when the after school care was there. And my understanding is those disagreements just kind of led to it ending. But again, that's secondhand information, so
Sure.
I have no direct knowledge of that.
And if this program were to grow, would there be an opportunity if the numbers showed, into next school year? They knew families knew this was something they could rely upon. Would there potentially be availability for 2 locations? Is that something you'd be willing to expand? Because I know Peter had talked about the ratio of adults per kids just with childcare, um, not the preschool. And if there's so many kids, instead of turning them away, perhaps in a year we say, how about a second option? How about at this elementary school and at Peter, or whatever,
But yeah, I mean,
across that.
obviously Otto Peterson and Grant Watts are just stones throw away from each other. So
Sure.
using those 2 facilities, I don't think would be out of the question. Otto Peterson is obviously the most up-to-date building in our district. And so it makes more sense currently, but I mean, if it expanded to that point and this outside entity were the ones, truly running this program and all we're doing is providing a space for that, I don't see why we wouldn't be open to that.
Mr. Mayor. For efficiency purposes, would it be possible for the school district to start making the list of questions and concerns now, just so that we have that ready and we can get all of your questions and concerns addressed?
Yes, to the extent that there's a part that I don't know what I don't know because we haven't done an outside program like this in the district that I've been in. And so I would need to gather some information from people who had that experience prior to me being here. But yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? I think was actually very productive.
We need one of those that was easy buttons.
Let's get the right people.
That was very helpful, really.
Yeah, no, that was really
very much.
helpful. I think we kind of have a path that we can go down and work with the school district on this now.
Michelle kept kicking me under the desk here and said,
Give them more, give them more.
So I actually have a question kind of related to that. How would the approval on your guys' how would that go on the school district's end?
not sure if I know exactly what you're asking, but typically it'd be a facility use form. And so the entity that was running this would fill out a facility use form, and then we would okay that, designating the spots that they needed for that time frame, and make sure that, for example, the janitorial was taken care of and the lights and all of that kind of stuff.
So I just want to know who we need to put pressure on. So is this a you decision or is it the school board decision?
I sign off on the facility use forms if that's what you're asking.
It's a start.
If there's a contract, it would ultimately be approved by the school board on like a
Yeah, well, it depends on how much. I mean, the school board's actually really good about not getting in the weeds of running the district. But that would be, more than likely, it'd be myself and Mitch Nielsen that would look at it. Make sure it would look the way it did, and then obviously with legal counsel advice.
Obviously, we'll.
We'll have our guy
Works now,
talk to
huh?
your guy.
Yeah, unfortunately.
All right, thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, work session adjourned. We'll have regular meeting about 10 minutes. North Carolina's up by